Welcome back to live market coverage here on the ticker. As we've been following some alarming rises in coronavirus case counts in Florida, Texas, Arizona, and California, we do have news to report on the death counts rising there in Florida, setting a record in terms of how many Americans are perishing from COVID-19. That's something that a lot of people feared when we think about the lag time between cases rising and deaths rising. And now I want to dig into one expert on the way that this country's been handling the issue, a man who knows all too well pandemics, the author of The Great Influenza, the story of the deadliest pandemic in history, joins us now with a new op-ed in the New York Times, really stressing that we won't get a second chance at controlling this. A lot of people already saying right now that it's been botched the first time, but just want to read an excerpt of that op-ed here just to kind of drive the point home. John Barry, the author here who's joining us, just want to read this. Your words, John. Quote, "This is our second chance. We won't get a third if we don't get the growth of this pandemic under control now. In a few months, when the weather turns cold and forces people to spend more time indoors, we could face a disaster that dwarfs the situation today." John, first off, thanks for joining us. I mean, it's a very dire prediction here, but what is your take on why this is really the last chance we have?
Well, as I said, the weather is going to change. Practically all respiratory viruses, and we think COVID-19 as well, or SARS-CoV-2 to be more technical, they transmit less well in hot weather for a lot of reasons. And yet, obviously, we're seeing explosive growth in much of the South, where it's in the 90s, in some cases over 100. When it gets colder and when people are indoors more, it's going to get worse. If we do not get the virus in a box soon, then we are running very, very high risks.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of point out basically where we are in all of this too. You can think about if you back up a few months and what we were seeing play out in Italy, really the poster child of where this problem was really rearing its head, or Germany as well. And you think about Italy having 200 new cases a day versus what we're seeing now in Texas, over 9,000, as you point out in the op-ed. I mean, a lot of people would say that this time was a few months ago and we missed it. And now nothing really has been done aside from the CDC coming out and saying that now is the time to wear masks. We still don't have a national order to wear masks. So really, is it, I guess, the expectation that nothing is going to change as we approach those winter months?
Well, I think things are changing. For one, the entire Republican Party pretty much is now in favor of masks. The majority leader, McConnell's worn them, recommended a Pence. They even got Trump to wear one. And as the situation in a lot of red states gets bad, as people see their cousin or neighbor go to the hospital, hopefully not die, but in some cases die, I think the message is getting across. Before, it was in the north, seemed almost exclusively in the Northeast and the Northwest, in big cities, and people didn't take it seriously. Obviously, Trump trivialized it for a long time, but it's coming home now. I think there's, you look at the polling, and now even a majority of Republicans are saying they wear masks. So as that increases, then we do have a chance. But masks alone and social distancing, which is more important than masks, along with the hand washing and so forth, they are not going to be enough to get this virus back in a box. They will be enough to blunt the explosive growth. But we still have that really high baseline, which is a problem. We never got down to where Europe got.
Yeah, and obviously you've already kind of documented what happened there in the Great Influenza, and we think about the deadliest pandemic in history on that front. I'd be curious to get your take on how kind of the psychology behind all this might even pose a bigger risk when we think about lockdowns, states going back into lockdowns, how people following these orders might fall apart because they don't want to do it again. And you talk about the politics behind all this. Just want to highlight, too, that we've seen the governor in Georgia, Brian Kemp, prohibiting local municipalities there from mandating masks being worn in public, and how politics here might, coupled with, I guess, fatigue in really dealing with all this might be a poison cocktail similar to what we saw play out in that great pandemic.
Well, it could be, but 1918 was different, and nobody thought that was a hoax. It was a much more virulent virus, many more deaths. People could die in 24 hours. So you had a different situation in 1918. I do look. The worst case is, it's out there. You've described it. That's one of the reasons I wrote the op-ed to warn against it. I don't think we're going to get a change out of the White House. We have seen movement among Republican governors in red states. Obviously Abbott in Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, well, Mississippi as well. So there is some hope. And the other thing is, except in states where a governor might have a legal authority to prohibit more aggressive action in cities, you have mayors. You don't necessarily need to have a national lockdown, or even if it's a really large state, you don't necessarily have to be statewide. But certainly in localities, and the county level, and maybe several counties, and it could be selective. But it has to be done now.
We've seen that really hope that you're talking about there. We would want to see that play out on an even larger scale here too. But John Barry, appreciate you taking the time to chat with us on that.
Hey investors, Zack Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.